or not, happened or not. And a few other things, as well as the symptoms that I was experiencing in the hospital at the time I was diagnosed. Schizophrenia for me has been, I think, more negative symptoms than positive symptoms. I've had some positive symptoms, persecutory delusions, for instance. Persecutory delusions being the hallmark of paranoid schizophrenia, and delusions of grandeur, which I have not had delusions of grandeur, but that is a part of paranoid schizophrenia. At least I don't believe I've had delusions of grandeur. I thought I killed someone for a long time. I thought that I had killed somebody, and that could be a delusion of grandeur. I'm not exactly sure if that was. But yeah, that was a hard time. I just knew that I had done something, and possibly with a gun, and that I had forgotten or something like that. That was still comes up every now and then, but it's a delusion that's hard to deal with. Mostly it's been negative symptoms for me, though. I've never been able to keep a job, and have always been a little socially not really with it socially, and not pick up on a lot of things. And so yeah, I think a lot of it is negative symptoms. When I was diagnosed, and before I knew what schizophrenia was exactly, well, after I learned what schizophrenia was, and after I learned about the negative symptoms, I was in denial for a long time. But I think it really matches my life, and so the people who diagnosed me saw that, and I'm learning to see it now too. This past time I was in the hospital, I just got out of the hospital. I was in it until July 1st, and so didn't get to experience Pride here. Saw that from the inside, and so what I like to do, I thought that there were people living in my toe when I was in the hospital, and which is a peculiar sensation and a thing to think. I think I had tactile hallucinations where I would feel people in my toe moving around. And so what I like to do is, after I get out of the hospital, I like to get my medical records almost instantly and read through them. And I found some patterns in them. It's good to have these medical records because I forget exactly what my thoughts were and what I experienced. I forget them really easily. So I have all these medical records, and when you first go in the hospital, you meet with a psychologist or someone who makes an initial diagnosis and writes a report about you, an initial report about me, which is the first thing that I read. And then you're followed every day by a doctor, a psychologist who makes notes about you and whatnot. And one pattern is that there's always these in front of the notes. There's always a list, and I'm going to read you the list of one of my notes. And it says appearance, bizarre, attitude, cooperative and less guarded, eye contact, fair, mood, anxious and depressed, affect, intensity is flat and constricted mobility, speech, clear, coherent, psychomotor behavior, physically retardation, which, yeah, apparently physical retardation when it comes to psychomotor behavior, thought process, illogical, associations, loosening of associations present, thought content, obsessions present, insight, limited, judgment, limited, and so on, like orientation, attention span, concentration, recent remote memory, language, fund of knowledge, muscle strength and tone, gait and station. And so this is the beginning of a lot of notes. And so they make note of your appearance, which I thought was interesting, and your attitude and whatnot. I mean, I can understand making note of your thought process and stuff like this, but they definitely make note of your appearance. Here's another one. The list reads: hallucinations, thinking, orientation, memory, insight, judgment, eye contact, affect, mood, physical appearance, hygiene, suicidality, self-injury, activity, speech, medication sensitivity, which is a kind of a bizarre thing, psychomotor or gait, and hygiene. And hygiene isn't filled out in my particular note there. So that's kind of fun. There are techs in the hospital who apparently write down everything that happens. This is what one wrote about me. Patient is visibly in the milieu, pacing the hallway, but not participating much in groups. Patient has flat, blunted affect. Patient feels that she... well, actually, this is a little private. I don't think I want to read it. But, yeah, they take note of everything that goes on when you're in the hospital. You can't get away with anything. The only thing I got away with was cheeking my vitamin D. That is, keeping my vitamin D in my cheek and not actually swallowing it. Because it wasn't labeled, and I was suspicious of the things that they were giving me at the time. So I'd go and check the label of each medication. I'd write down the label, and the first time I would cheek them, and then after I went to the internet and found the medications. The problem with going to the internet, though, is you don't have access to it, so you have to do it through a tech. And I didn't know this tech would take note of me doing it, which they did, and so that was that. The hardest thing about the hospital really is lack of internet connection and lack of computer. Not every hospital is like this, but the one that I went to, Fairview, was definitely like this. So let's go on to my experience of schizophrenia, which I touched on a little bit already, but I'd like to touch on more. There is a couple of things. I'm going to play for you this clip from this one woman, and there's a couple of things that really resonate with me and this woman. I'll tell you about them after the clip.
It's like inside my mind, it switched, my mode of thinking switched from understanding people in the world and accepting them, accepting how they felt about me, if it was good or bad or whatever. It was like something was coming up, my anger was coming back up, and I could no longer keep it down. I couldn't control it, I couldn't squelch it. And so what came out at that time in my mind, I think I crossed over from mental health to mental illness. And I didn't start to hear voices until maybe a month or two later. But inside my mind, it was like I figured, oh, now they're going to find out. Now they're going to hate me. Now they're going to find out what I'm really like inside, and they're going to hate me. And so shortly after that, I did begin to hear voices. Mm-hmm. But, yeah.
Well, what was the voices like? What did they say?
For me, it was hate voices, and it has been, because the voices have continued on ever since then. But for me, my voices aren't from a disembodied source. I think I've heard a disembodied voice inside my head only once, I remember, in my life. But most of the time, my voices, they seem to come from other people in the environment. Somebody walking by, driving by, somebody I meet, mostly strangers, people, but for me it mimics reality. And at the same time, I know that I have schizoaffective disorder because there have been times when I know I've hallucinated something. I used to hear my father say, I'm sick of it, I'm just sick of it. And I know that he didn't say that. And I heard my neighbor, a friend, say something to somebody about me. And I know later on that she never said that, and I believed her. And so I realized, wait, I am hallucinating. But for the longest time, I thought it was real. I thought I deserved it. This is reality. This is what's coming back to me for what I'm like inside, and I deserve it. And that feeling of deserving it actually it was hard to diagnose. Because even though I was hearing all these voices and was floridly psychotic, and nobody really knew what was wrong with me. So my parents, they used to take me to a counselor, and the counselor would try to talk to me, and no matter how much they talked, they couldn't turn myself around. But finally, my counselor told my parents, well, she can't be helped. So they took me to a psychiatrist. And within 5 minutes, the psychiatrist says, you have schizophrenia, you have depression, you need the medication, I'm going to give you this. This is an illness, you can get over it. It's not something you're doomed to feel the rest of your life. And the idea that it was an illness, that was new to me. Very, very, and to my family. To know that there was a name called schizophrenia that explained what I was going through. So once I was on medication, and the medication was strong enough, I also noticed a very profound change in my thoughts. It's like before, my thoughts had been like a whirlpool, just obsessing, thinking, how can I get out of this? How can I change myself so people won't hate me? What can I do to deal with all this hatred? It was like a whirlpool. And I remember for the first time lying in bed and feeling like I had just been thrown up onto the shore. I had been shipwrecked in the sea, and the waves had been crashing over me, and I had been struggling to keep afloat. And then I found myself on the beach and just resting and feeling peace, just for the first time that I ever remembered. And then I remember the first day I said, you know, this was a good day. I hadn't had a good day for anything I can remember.
I think that's a really powerful clip. I hope you enjoyed it. There's a couple things that resonate with me in that clip. One is I've never had anyone describe what my hallucinations are like, and they're very similar to hers. One of the first hallucinations I had was I was in the hospital at HCMC, and one of the techs was telling me something as they were dealing with my possessions, and they told me that they were here to punish me. And it took a while to realize that maybe they didn't actually say that, and maybe I heard that, and they didn't actually say that. And there's a couple other instances during that stay where I would hear things like that, where I'd be too far away to hear something, or things like that. The other thing that really resonates with me is her feeling that if they knew, they would hate her. And I've struggled with thinking that I'm possessed, and that I'm evil. And if people knew that I was evil, if people saw what I'd see, and how I felt, and how I thought, that they would think I was evil, and because I am evil, and I'm possessed with